Happy Taco Tuesday. It's always a happy day on Taco Tuesday. Maybe not so happy, though, for the Department of Education, Princeton University. The Department of Education informed Princeton that it is now under investigation following the school president's declaration that racism was embedded in the institution. This is one of those great boomerang stories where Princeton thought it was doing something super great about declaring white privilege and how riddled it is by its own acclamation with racism. President Christopher Eisgruber published an open letter earlier this month claiming that racism and the damage it does to people of color persists at Princeton and that racist assumptions are embedded in the structures of the university itself. This is from the Washington Examiner, by the way. Tiana Lowe is the writer of this article. According to a letter the Department of Education sent to Princeton that was obtained by the Washington Examiner, such an admission from Eisgruber raises concerns that Princeton has been receiving tens of millions of dollars of federal funds in violation of the Title VI Civil Rights Act of 1964, which declares, quote, "No person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." Do you see where this is going? Eisgruber's letter branding the 274-year-old university racist came after a summer of unrest rife with race riots and an open letter from hundreds of Princeton faculty members who wrote, quote, "Anti-black racism has a visible bearing upon Princeton's campus makeup." They just had no clue that they were shooting themselves in the foot. The admission was followed by dozens of anti-racist policy changes and demands for further policy changes. Among them were calls for select faculty race quotas and to, quote, reconsider the use of standardized testing for admissions. In other words, standardized testing, come on. You know, that's for white people. That's for rich people. I mean, just in itself, it is racist to subtly assume that non-white people can't handle standardized testing. This reminds me of that, where was that? I was up in Spokane, I think. He was like the head of Catholic Charities. And he went on this childish rant about how racist he was and how racist Catholic Charities is and how racist the Catholic Church is. I mean, I'm assuming that he was let go because you don't want a racist running your Catholic Charities, do you? And he was on and on and on about how racist he was. And, of course, you're racist, too. If you're white, you're racist anyway. It reminds you of that guy. So they sent a letter to Princeton. Based on its admitted racism, the U.S. Department of Education is concerned about your non-discrimination and equal opportunity assurances in your program participation agreements from at least 2010 to the present, that these protestations, these statements may in fact have been false. So I have the letter right here in front of me. It's too long for me to read to you the entire thing, but I'll read to you some select sections. This is from September the 16th, 2020. From the United States Department of Education to Christopher L. Eisgruber, President, Princeton University. And the RE line says, Princeton University's admissions of racism, potential violations of prohibitions against substantial misrepresentation arising from non-discrimination and equal opportunity assurances. Dear President Eisgruber, since you became president in 2013 and in exchange for well over $75 million in federal Title IV, taxpayer funds alone, Princeton University, hereafter Princeton, has repeatedly represented and warranted to the United States Department of Education Princeton's compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Title VI provides no person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subject to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal assistance. Also, Princeton has made many material non-discrimination and equal opportunity representations to students, parents, and consumers in the market for education certificates during this time. On September 2nd, you admitted Princeton's educational program is and for decades has been racist. Among other things, you said, quote, racism and the damage it does to people of color persists at Princeton rather. I mean, maybe they are synonymous, at least according to President Eisgruber. I made a goof there when I said racism instead of Princeton, but maybe that's what he meant. And racist assumptions remain embedded in structures of the university itself. And they give a link to the letter, and they describe it in further detail. You also said, President Eisgruber, that Princeton is, this is a quote, exploring the possibility of a new credit or degree granting program that would extend Princeton's teaching to a new range of students from communities disproportionately affected by systemic racism and related forms of disadvantage. Because of racism, you announced race-based diversity measures for hiring, procurement, teaching, fellowship, and research funding. And it gives a link to the section of the letter where he said that. Based on its admitted racism, the U.S. Department of Education is concerned Princeton's non-discrimination and equal opportunity assurances in its program participation agreements from at least 2013 to the present may have been false. The department is further concerned Princeton perhaps knew or should have known these assurances were false at the time they were made. Finally, the department is further concerned Princeton's many non-discrimination and equal opportunity claims to students, parents, and consumers in the market for education certificates may have been false, misleading, and actionable, substantial misrepresentations and violation of U.S. code, and it gives a bunch of different legalese and code numbers, etc. Based on the facts, the Secretary of Education may consider measures against Princeton for false program participation agreement, non-discrimination assurances, including an action to recover funds. You get that? So all those many millions and millions of taxpayer dollars that went to this admittedly racist organization, a.k.a. Princeton University, they may claw all that back. Can you imagine being, what's his name, President Eisgruber? I think I mispronounced his name earlier. Could you imagine being that guy, having to answer to the board of trustees to Princeton because he thought he was such a hero? I'm assuming it's a he. I think it's a he. He thought he was such a hero, and he thought he was doing such an awesome thing by shouting from the rooftops how racist the school still is. And then the Department of Education said, "Oh, really? Oh, is that so? Well, that changes everything. That puts a different paint job on things, doesn't it? And all those monies that we gave you, obviously, I mean, if you were lying to us and misrepresenting things, well, we're going to get all that money back." So they give them a series of bullet points. This is awesome. I love this. This is under the records production. Now, we're not talking about albums here. We're not talking about your favorite band. They are now subpoenaing, is that a verb? They have subpoenaed. They have demanded the production of records, not record albums. So they say, please produce the following records within 21 calendar days. Please produce each record that you identified, referred to, described, relied upon, reviewed, or used in any way in preparing your written response. Please also identify and describe in detail each such record. All records concerning, relating to, or referencing the president's letter. The time frame for this request goes back is April 1st, 2020 to the present. All records concerning, relating to, or referencing the diversity measures. The time frame for this request, blah, blah. They have the same time frame, or it varies slightly. And they go down through about another 6 or 7 different demands for records. They identify that by, or they define that by saying records means all recorded information, regardless of form or characteristics, made or received, and including metadata such as email or other electronic communication, draft and final word processing documents, social media, in other words, Facebook and Twitter, posts, PDF documents, animations, including PowerPoint and other similar programs, spreadsheets, databases, calendars, telephone logs, contact manager information, internet usage files, network access information, writings, drawings, graphs, charts, photographs, sound recordings, images, financial statements, checks, wire transfers, accounts, ledgers, facsimiles, texts, animations, voicemails, data generated by calendaring, task management, and personal information management. I'm only halfway through the paragraph. There's that much more of the definition of the documents that they want. They want the routing software documentation. They want, I mean, you name it, any conceivable form they want, and they want it within 21 days. And they give, this is how you're going to give it to us, and this is when you're going to give it to us. And they say they conclude by saying, This investigation will be conducted by the Department Office of the General Counsel with support from the Office of Post-Secondary Education. And they say, here's the guy that your lawyer should be in touch with. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. So that's how that's going down. I have a feeling deep inside. Oh, yeah. Now, I have a feeling that President Eisgruber might not be back next year. I'm just guessing.
Happened?
Exactly. He thought, again, I think it's a he. He thought he was vaulting to the front ranks of the new, what would you call it? You know, the race champions, by insisting on how racist Princeton is. I mean, it was virtue signaling to the max. That's all that was. But I love how it boomeranged back. I really do. I must say, I am pleased with this turn of events. I have a feeling that the Board of Trustees will not be so pleased, and I'm certain that all the people who have to dig up all those records and be in compliance within now less than 21 days, they're probably not so happy with it.
For more of The Patrick Madrid Show, visit relevantradio.com/Patrick.